If you are thinking about getting into real estate investing, but you don't really know where to start, then no worries, I got you covered. Today, we're gonna go over the top 3 most basic, simple ways to get started investing in real estate. Let's go. Thank you so much for joining me today, you guys. If you are new here, my name is Taylor Hudgens. I'm your real estate agent helping you make Hampton Roads your home. So today, I wanted to make a video that's a little different. I wanted to make a video on how to get started with investing, because not to get too far into it, investing in real estate has really changed my life. I bought my first rental property in 2019, and it helped me through some of the toughest times of my life. So for example, when I got divorced, I was able to sell the property for much more than I bought it for, thank God. And I used that money for a down payment for a house for myself to live in when I had nowhere else to go. I also used the cash flow from that rental property during COVID to pay off some of my credit cards when I had no income, like a lot of people probably did during COVID. So everyone has a different story, but buying a rental property, honestly, I don't know what I would have done if I didn't have it, to be totally honest with you. So I want to make a video to help other people that are on this path as well, because I'm just so eternally grateful to the people that I met on my journey through real estate investing, the people that pushed me to get started, that helped me and nudged me along my path, because I owe them so much because that house helped me in times where I couldn't in a certain way help myself. So thank God for this. But I just remember when I was first learning about real estate investing and all the different ways you can do it, I just remember being so overwhelmed. I remember listening to podcast after podcast, which were all super great. I just remember listening to these podcasts and they would say like how I grew my business to get my 100th house and how I flipped 32 houses in 1 year. And I'm just like, all I could think was I need to figure out how to just get my first, and then I'll worry about house number 100 whenever I get there. But first I just got to figure out how to buy one. So today I wanted to go ahead and give you the most common, basic, standard ways that people get started in buying their very first rental property. So my only suggestion as we go through this video is I want to make sure that you're actually interested in buying a rental property. That's all this video is for. I'll probably do way more videos down the road. So if you're interested in a certain topic, feel free to leave that in the comments below. There are just so many different flavors of real estate. So, I mean, you have Airbnbs, you have midterm rentals, you have some people interested in flips and wholesaling, and there's just a plethora of ways to get started in real estate. But today, I just wanted to start with 3 basic ways to get your first long-term rental property. So feel free to check out YouTube and places like Bigger Pockets for more information. But today, we're just gonna start with the basics and take it from there. Let's go. Okay, so again, I figured we would go ahead and start with 3 of the most common basic ways to get into a rental property. And I figured we could go over some pros and cons of each, just so that way you can kind of get a better feel of what works for each one and which one doesn't work for you at this moment in your life, no matter if you're looking at it from a family view or a financial view, of course a financial view, but just trying to give you different options so that way you can figure out what works best for you at this point in your life. So the most common way to get started is to just purchase a home as a primary residence. So the idea is that you buy a house, and then whenever you're ready to move or get into a bigger house or move to a different area, you'll turn that first house into a rental property whenever it's time to go. So with that being said, there are some pros. Of course, you are going to get way better loan terms when you're purchasing a primary residence and then converting it to a rental later on down the road. So a lot of that's going to mean lower down payments, better interest rate, and better loan terms overall. This works really great if you are currently renting an apartment or renting a house, and then what you're doing is essentially taking that rent payment that you're giving to your current landlord and then putting that into a mortgage payment. So even if you aren't getting immediate cash flow, you're at least putting your money that's being put towards rent into an asset that is growing in value over time. So at least one day you'll see that money come back whenever you go to sell your home. This is probably the most simple method out of all of the ones that we're going to take a look at today. It's going to be the most simple because you have a slower timeline with this one. So you're not immediately becoming a landlord and learning all the laws. You're just honestly starting with just buying yourself a house, and that is it. You can also do some things for this method that are going to give you some immediate cash flow. So for example, you could get a roommate if you wanted to, or you could also Airbnb a spare room in your house to get some extra cash flow. So that way you're not fully becoming a landlord where you're in control of this whole house that you never see, that someone else is living in, but you're also able to get some cash flow from it if that works for you. Now, I also understand every life situation is different, and maybe getting a roommate or Airbnb a spare room just does not fit for you right now. So let's go ahead and hop into option number 2. Option number 2, and this is probably the one that's talked about the most in the investing community because the strategy is just so good. So if you've been learning about investing, you've probably heard the term house hacking. So this is where we're going to use your primary home loan to go purchase a multifamily property. So a multifamily property is something like a duplex, a triplex, or a quad, because most first-time home loans are going to cover anything that's 4 units or below. So this is a great method because not only are you getting more units, which equals more rental income, you also are going to be living there, and hopefully if the numbers work out right, you're going to be living there essentially mortgage free. So, okay, not mortgage free because you own the duplex, but let's say you buy a duplex and you live in one side, rent out the other. You're going to use that rent payment from the other tenant to pay the mortgage payment. So essentially, you're bypassing your biggest expense as a human being on planet Earth, which is your housing expense, right? So this has catapulted so many people because instead of spending $1,000 a month on rent or mortgage, a lot of people are able to then save that money and then use it to go buy more rental properties down the road or whatever investment strategy you're into at the moment. So this is a great way to get started because you can still get all those great loan terms of a primary residence, but also get cash flow from tenants immediately. I will say one of the hardest parts about this strategy is that it kind of depends on where you live. Not all areas have lots of multifamilies. Some areas have tons of quads and duplexes and triplexes, and it's super common. Some areas, not so much. Some areas just are mostly single family homes, and that's just kind of what it is. I do know in certain areas of Virginia, like Charlottesville, for example, a lot of people will take these houses, live in the top area, and then convert the basement into a separate living unit, and then rent out the basement to other people and use that money to help them with whatever expenses they choose. So, of course, in Hampton Roads, we don't really have basements because the water table is so high. But that's okay, because we do have some duplexes and triplexes. But with that, the only other hard thing about using this method is when you're going to purchase, and again, this is going to be different area to area, is that you have to find a house that's on the market that has a tenant in there that has a lease expiring soon so that you can move in, essentially. Or you have to find one that has a vacant unit already for you to move into. So it's only really tough when you're looking at duplexes or triplexes that have tenants in there and their leases don't expire till next year, because obviously the loan isn't going to qualify for a unit like that because you won't be living there. So that's the only thing about that, is you just kind of have to be a little pickier, and it's all going to depend on the inventory in your area. So with that being said, when I purchased my very first house, I wasn't able to use this method because I was with a guy, and of course the guy used his VA loan to purchase a house for himself, which was great, and I moved in with him. It worked totally fine at the time. And then I used my money to go purchase an investment property separate. So let's go ahead and jump into that method as our third method. So of course this brings us to our last method, which of course is just purchasing a rental property with an investment loan, which is totally fine. And this works really great if you are already living in a house that you love and you have no desire to move anytime soon, this method is what got me into my first rental property, because I just moved in with my boyfriend at the time, and so I was like, well, I have no desire to move. We just bought this house. We're not gonna move. We bought it like 3 months ago. So that brought me to buying this rental property out in Portsmouth at the time. So it worked really great. You just gotta know that this loan type is a little harder to get into. They're going to require you to have so much more income because they're assuming that you're also paying for a home on your own, things like that. They're going to, of course, look at everything in your loan application, but just know that they are going to require a much larger down payment. The terms aren't going to be nearly as good, but that's okay, because as long as your numbers work, who really cares? You are going to get instant cash flow because you'll become an instant landlord. So that's also really nice, that you don't have to wait until you're ready to move and buy a second house or anything like that. You can go ahead and just get started and buy a rental property straight up. You can also use an investment loan to buy a multifamily if you want to. So if you qualify and all the numbers work out for you and your lender, you can go ahead and just buy a quad if you want to. So this method is a little tougher because when you're just first starting and you don't have that much money to work with, it's easier to use the first two methods. But you know, if you already have a house and you're already a little further along, have some more money saved up, then you can use just an straight up investment loan to go ahead and get started and buy a rental property. So hopefully one of these three will work for you, and if not, if you have any questions, feel free to leave those in the comments below. I'll make sure to answer those. Of course, this is my first rental style video, so of course, if you have any questions or have any other topics that you'd like covered, feel free to leave those in the comments as well. Again, I'm here in Hampton Roads, here to help answer any questions you have, so feel free to reach out to me personally anytime. I'll leave my contact information below, and thank you again for joining me, and I will see you in the next video.